Welcome, everybody. It's great to be with you again this week. I have lovely Xanthia with me, and I'm very happy to bring this story to you because Xanthia had a pregnancy where she knew that her little girl was going to need help when she was born. And that's a big journey into itself. And I like to give you as many different stories as possible to realize that, you're walking into the mystery, you don't know what's ahead. And whilst we can't control this process, we can influence it. And one of the greatest ways you can influence it is to prepare, not just logistically, but also emotionally and subconsciously. So I'm going to start welcoming Xanthia. Thank you, darling.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh, it's so good to have you. Now, tell us how you're feeling about the idea of having a baby and giving birth and what sort of preparation that you did.
Oh, this is like such a good first question. So I kind of view it in two parts, like something very major happened in my pregnancy that changed how it was. So I'll kind of start with the before.
Yeah.
So I fell pregnant very easily and soon after my wedding. And I'd always wanted to be pregnant and I'd always wanted to give birth. I'd always been fascinated with this. I'd listened to so many like birth stories and I loved the TV show like Call the Midwife. And whenever one of my friends or family would have a baby, I'd be like, tell me your birth story. And I
Oh,
loved it.
wow.
So when I found out I was pregnant, I already knew exactly like what type of care I wanted. And I had an envisionment of having a home birth. So I had enrolled
Okay.
myself in the continuity program and I was paired with like a really beautiful midwife who was like, I can do your home birth, or if we can't have the home birth, we'll have it in the birth center, but you'll still have me. And I was feeling so excited and so elated. And then when I was 20 weeks pregnant,
Mm.
I'd gone in for my morphology scan. And the thing I was most nervous about leading up to this morphology scan was my placenta traveling up. So I had an anterior placenta. And if my placenta hadn't moved further up enough, I wouldn't be able to have the home birth.
Right.
Thankfully, it had moved up. But then what was diagnosed at this morphology scan was that my daughter had a congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And
Mm.
this was a complete shock to me and my husband. It just flipped everything on its head. We were actually going to Japan the next day. So we had a flight to Japan at 6 a.m. and I had booked my morphology scan in the afternoon the day before. And some things had happened with my morphology scan where we'd missed the appointment. So they had to rebook us. And so we actually went in, it was done by a doctor, Dr. Mary Robinson at CFAT. And from that, it was, you're given a pamphlet and it's like your baby has a 50% survival. So any baby born in
Yeah.
Australia has a 50% survival rate. And from that moment, my whole pregnancy changed. I had been very young. I was like 26, 27. I think I was 26 when we found out Sadie was sick. And it changed everything. It meant that I had to have a very monitored pregnancy. And it was also at the time not known if the pregnancy would end in a live birth, if
Wow.
we would have to face a medical termination, or if the baby would survive beyond if I carried to term.
Mm.
And so then that really changed how I was preparing mentally as well.
Yeah.
So from the moment I found out I was pregnant, it almost became like my personality for 9 months. I'd done like a lot of research. I've been doing a lot of listening to podcasts. So I loved the Great Birth Rebellion. And I had booked into your course when I was like, I swear, like 7 weeks pregnant or something like that. My friend Beth, who runs Offspring Yoga, was like, you have to book Tracy's course. You have to book Tracy's course when I told her I was pregnant. So I literally booked it. Like, I hadn't even told many people I was pregnant and I booked your course.
Wow.
So I booked that before knowing the baby was unwell as
Mm.
well. So I had to prepare in two very different ways because I had envisioned a physiological low interventions birth,
Yeah.
but our end result would never be a low interventions birth. So the thing
Mm.
with, I should probably explain what a congenital diaphragmatic hernia is to help people like make more sense.
Yeah.
So my daughter had a hole in her diaphragm. So the diaphragms are like you speak in your course all the time about the diaphragm and the importance of
Yeah.
it. So she had a hernia in her diaphragm on the back left side.
Mm-hmm.
So the diaphragm has like two purposes. It is a muscle that helps our lungs to deflate and inflate. And it also is important for separating our chest cavity to our abdominal organs. And because there was a hole, it caused her organs that are in her abdomen to herniate into her chest cavity on the left side. So that causes the lung to be on the left side to be underdeveloped and shift the heart over. So it causes not only gut issues because the bowels aren't in the right place, but it means the baby isn't able to breathe on their own once they're born.
Mm. Wow.
So from that, you need to deliver in a tertiary hospital, and the baby needs to be intubated pretty quickly
Yeah.
after birth. So that changed how we prepared for birth.
Mm. Wow. Huge thing to learn.
Huge thing and
Yeah.
very different. And I found it really hard to have to adjust to a medical
Mm.
pregnancy as well. I was able to keep my continuity midwife, and I delivered with her in the end in the birthing suites at the Canberra Hospital.
Yeah.
But
Which
my
is wonderful that you were able to keep that I mean, if anybody needs continuity, it's people in your situation.
yeah, and it's really hard once you become under the FMU, so the fetal
Mm.
medical unit. You get given a midwife, but for your antenatal care, but they're not there for the birth. It was just that I
Yeah.
had my midwife already assigned to me, and she felt really confident in this birth as well. So it
Yeah.
turns out I'm me and Sadie are her third pregnancy and birth with a baby with CDH. She was like, "There's
Right.
something just about me that it brings me into the orbit
Wow.
of women in this space."
You were very blessed to have that level of confidence support around you for that
Yeah,
particular issue,
yeah.
which is very, very rare. So, given that you'd been given that information and not sure how this was going to play out for your baby and the concern around her survival through this,
Mm,
the idea of preparing for birth must have been a little bit hard too, because it's like, what exactly am I preparing for? How did
yeah.
that play out when you came and did my course? Because that would have been a big thing in the back of your mind.
Yeah, so at that point when we came to do your course, obviously we knew at that point that our daughter was unwell, and it was still I was still having to fight quite hard to have a low interventions
Yeah.
birth.
Yeah.
So the recommendation for a baby with CDH, it's kind of quite odd. There's one study that says the best way for a baby with CDH to be born is vaginally,
Yeah.
because obviously you would know this, and people listening to this podcast, is that when
Mm.
the baby is expelled through the vaginal cavity, the birth canal, it clears out their lungs and helps them to
Yeah.
expand further.
Yeah.
So we want to make that right lung as healthy as possible. So the recommendation is to have a vaginal physiological birth.
Mm.
But then the other thing is like the timing. So they want to have the neonatal team prepared, and they are most staffed during the day. So they want you to come for an induction at a very timed position, have you on the drip, and have you getting lots of interventions to make sure that you deliver within the correct time frame for them at 39
Gee.
weeks. So I was
That,
having a lot of pressure to book in an induction at 39 weeks.
that does not sound wise to put a baby who's compromised through the extra stress of an
Yeah,
induction
yeah.
just so we can have the staff on board. That sounds like decision making based on convenience, but not on good thinking. Or dare I
Yeah,
say that?
yeah, and I get that. And I had so towards the end of my pregnancy, I just had a lot of extra monitoring to see
Right.
when we would do it, but I did politely keep declining the induction. And I think
Yeah.
um, what sent me into labor in the end is I booked an induction. Finally, I'd been like, I'm not coming in for one this week. I was 39 weeks plus 2 days, and I'd gone into the hospital, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not coming in for one today. I'm not coming in for tomorrow. I will book one at 30. I think it was like 39 plus five. Four, no,
Right.
40 plus five or something like that.
Right.
That's when I'll
Right.
come in. Thank you. That's when I'll.
And so you
And
called
I
the
went into
shots.
labor that night.
Yeah, there you go. Nothing like a
Yeah.
looming induction to send you into labor. I it's interesting to hear this because as a doula, I supported a woman with a baby with a diaphragmatic hernia as well. And this was her fifth baby. Her fourth ended up being a cesarean because he was in breech position after having three very straightforward vaginal births. And so this little one was a VBAC. He was not only was he dealing with a diaphragmatic hernia, but he was a vaginal birth after cesarean. And she did the same thing. She negotiated to have a very low fuss, low intervention birth. She felt very confident in her ability to birth this baby. There
That's
was a
how
very,
I felt. I was like, if you just leave us
yeah,
alone, we can
exactly.
do this.
And she just had very little fuss until there wasn't even continuous monitoring
Ah,
until he landed. And then, of course, the team came in and they
yeah.
did an incredible job of getting him to where he needed to be. So, wow, that's a huge thing. So, you were in a situation where you really didn't know what was going to be looming ahead. In your preparation, what were the things that you learned that really supported you to be able to manage this situation?
I think it was breath work. So,
Right.
long before I had even gotten pregnant or gone to your course, I'd been very obsessed with breath work.
Hmm.
I was like a religious yogi. I used to do yoga every single
Right.
day in right up until I gave birth, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I was really into breath work classes. So there's quite a few practitioners in Canberra
Yeah.
who I would love to do. I think it's called like re-breath work, if I remember correct. I've
So
done,
breath work as a therapeutic response, not as
yes,
necessarily breathing in the way that I teach it, which is
yes,
essentially
yeah,
normalizing your breathing and not over
yeah,
breathing. So
yeah.
breath work as a therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I'd
how,
done a breath work the day before I'd found out that Sadie was sick. So I think
right.
she's been on your podcast, Shelby.
Yes, yes, Shelby's been
Shelby
on.
ran
Yeah.
this beautiful rebirth breathwork class, and I had this beautiful experience. I think I was like 20 weeks pregnant. It was so gorgeous. I had this like beautiful visualization of like of a forest, and it was like burning down, but it was really quite beautiful. I'm not quite sure what that meant, but obviously
Yeah, yeah.
it meant something else throughout my pregnancy.
So doing that inner work and working with some of the patterns that we have inside of ourselves, the challenges, the wounds, all the different things that we ultimately have to deal with as we evolve through our lifetime. There's many different ways of doing that, but obviously breath work really helped you. And then, of course, breathing in labor is one of the top tools in the toolkit. It's the tool that
Yeah,
goes with every other tool because it's the pathway to relaxing deeply.
yeah.
So, yeah,
And a
beautiful.
lot of visualization.
Yeah,
So I did daily meditations often to your audios that you had.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
also created this very special corner in my house of a birth altar. I can probably
Oh,
send you a picture of it. But
lovely. I'd love you to. We'll put it
I
in
used to
the,
sit in front of my
yeah,
birth altar every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and just like
mm,
really connect with my baby and my breath. And
beautiful.
I spoke to my baby a lot. I was constantly talking to my belly, and I was saying, when you come out, you're going to have a quick cuddle with me, and then you're going to go with these really amazing doctors, and they're going to put a tube down your throat. And I was like, I don't know what it feels like to have a tube down my throat, but it might feel cold, it might feel plasticky. And so I was very connected to my baby throughout my pregnancy. And I think that's what made her so strong. And
Xanthia, how did you keep fear at bay? Because the way you're describing it now, I mean, you're on the other side now and you know that the outcome was good. But at that time, it must have been difficult not to go into a fear response
I
around
think
it.
I always knew my baby was going to be okay.
Did you?
I really, really did. I think the time, the period between the first diagnosis at CFAT, which is
Hmm.
the Canberra Fetal Assessment Unit, and then we had a week's time before we went to go and see the doctors at the fetal medical unit at Canberra Hospital, was very up in the air. Because obviously you're only given the information from the pamphlet on and online, and we'd connected with the CDH community during that week.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't sure how the pregnancy would end. But then when I had my first medical appointment at the FMU, they do this measurement where they measure the size of the lung and the head ratio, and from that it gives you a survival rate with medical interventions. And my daughter's prognosis was really strong.
Okay.
And I had started to feel my baby move in that week, like what timing, but like this, I'd felt when I thought I might be losing
Mm.
her, I'd started
Mm.
to feel her like really strongly. And I was like, I just know we're okay. And
Mm.
even if it
Very interesting.
ends that I would lose her, I was so thankful that I got to carry her to that point and
Mm.
experience
Mm.
this life and being pregnant and feeling connected to her. And I was so happy.
Wow.
It was, and I just was like, I just have to be strong for her, and she'll be, and it will all work out. And we have a really good healthcare system in Canberra, and
Mm.
a really good maternity system if you're under the continuity.
Yeah.
I think I just felt really confident. And another thing that really helped me feel confident was the doctor who intubated her in the room and stabilized her after birth, which is a very important thing for the survival of CDH babies.
Yeah.
He just made me feel so confident and really safe. Um, his name is Dr. Tavajvi Tej, I think that's his
Mhm.
name. And he just made me feel really confident that we would be able to
Mhm.
bring our baby home and deliver her safely as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know, we just always had this connection. And I just told her, like, you're strong and you're brave, and
Yeah.
I'm strong, and we can do it together.
I
And we
love
did.
that connection to the baby. I really think when you're in a situation where you don't know what's ahead and your baby's potentially at risk, that the mind doesn't know what to do with that, and can abound. And then you go looking at stories and you hear good outcomes,
Mm,
bad outcomes, and you can really lose yourself in that journey. But I think what Xanthia has shared with us today is she really anchored herself to the confidence of her caregivers, was wonderful,
mhm.
as well as her connection with little Sadie. And I in lieu of anything else, you've got to harness your mind, because if you let it run amok,
Yep.
it'll throw you into a lot of different emotional states that are potentially unnecessary. And there's
Yeah.
only one way to deal with this in the great unknown, is to choose to marinate your baby with love, not fear.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We
It's a
definitely
term
need
I
that.
often use, in talking about this. I'm a great believer in naming the pink elephant in the room. We don't know. Like, birth takes you to the edge of life and death, both for the mother and the baby on some level. And because, I mean, we're so incredibly grateful and lucky to have a great medical safety net like we do. But to live in the fear of what can happen only creates stress in your body, which then influences your baby.
Mm,
So, being in the pool of the unknown, I think, requires you to find a stable force that you can anchor yourself to, and to choose love over fear, knowing that by doing that, you're actually cooking your baby with love, not fear.
yeah.
And I just think that just helps with your mental health. It helps with you being able to get through something as mysterious as, how is my baby going to be at the end of all of this?
Yeah.
So I hope that's helped you, because this is not just relevant for babies with the condition of, having a diaphragmatic hernia that Xanthia is talking about, but any babies. Don't let yourself have a pregnancy that's fear-based. If you can avoid it, find ways and methods within your own mind to really stay focused on what you want, not what you don't want, knowing that however long your baby's here, if you've cooked them in love, no regrets. You know that you've done your very best.
And
Um,
I knew my baby was the safest inside of me.
yeah, right.
And
Mm,
that made me feel really confident. So I was speaking to another mum
right.
recently who's about to deliver her baby with CDH.
Wow.
And I was saying, your baby is the safest inside of you right now.
Mm.
And that made me feel really confident. And
Yeah.
I also did a lot of visualizations at the birth altar. So I think one time I came in to see my midwife and I was like, can we go and see the birth suites? Because I knew I was giving birth in the birth suites, not the
Yeah.
birth center. And they don't often give women tours of the birth suite. So I
Yeah.
could go into the room and see what it was going to look like compared to
Hmm.
visualizing what it would look like at home
Yeah.
to visualize. And I was like, okay, this is what it looks like. And she showed me like where they would put the baby after delivery and how it would look and how many people would be in the room. So I knew when I would be when the baby would be born, there'd be a lot of people in the room.
Yeah.
And I was just able to like visualize that and like it was great.
And yeah, get your head around it. Fantastic. Wow. That's
And we
so
haven't
good.
even gotten into like the
I
birth.
know.
Like
So
I'm the
let's get
mum
into it
of
now. Tell me how the birth unfolded.
So I was 39 plus 2 weeks. So it was a Tuesday. And I had, at this point in my pregnancy, I was going into the FMU. I went pretty consistently for scans throughout my
Hmm.
pregnancy. Um, and I was on maternity leave at this point. I think I've been on maternity leave properly for about 2 weeks. And came in for it's called a well-being scan at this point when you're 39 weeks because the ultrasounds get really hard to read and they already
Mm.
knew the baby had a diaphragmatic hernia and they knew all these things, so they're just checking a few things. They're just checking fluid levels, blood flow and movement.
Hmm.
And had before I went into the scan, I actually went up and I saw my midwife in the birth center and I was like, okay, it's 39 weeks. This is the time. We're getting to the prickly end. We want the neos want to induce me and the obstetricians want to induce me. Should we do a stretch and sweep? And I had been doing acupuncture fairly regularly from about
Hmm.
37 weeks. Also a bit of osteo and massages. There's this really great massage therapist. Everyone should go and see her. She's at Baby and Bump
Right.
or Bump and Me. Her name is Mint. It's up in Belconnen. She is a miracle worker. I used to see her very regularly for massages in pregnancy.
Good for you,
So
darling.
I'd
Good.
just been trying to be really relaxed and happy. And
Mm.
my midwife was like, yep, let's do a stretch and sweep. And from what I understand now, they don't really do stretch and sweeps until you're past your due date. So I was a few days before my due date, and they'll only do it if the cervix is favorable.
Right.
So my midwife goes to do it, and she's like, nope, cervix is favorable. I'll do it now. So she did the stretch and sweep, which I'd heard could be really uncomfortable. And it was not for me. It just felt like someone had their hand inside of me. It didn't
Mm.
feel that uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
don't, compared to having an amniocentesis, which I had in pregnancy, it was not very bad.
Mm.
And my midwife was like, okay, you're going to feel some cramping, but just ignore it. Ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. That's not labor coming on. You'll have other signs if you're in labor. So then we toddle off downstairs and we have a scan. And then we, after how the FMU works, is you have a scan and then you have a consult with the obstetrician. And I had been seeing a specialist obstetrician at the FMU and they were not there that day. And I saw Dr. Roberto, who I'm pretty sure if you've ever been a part of the FMU, you know him. He is a really amazing obstetrician. And I had actually not seen him for a consult. I'd met him and he'd been very a part of our journey, but I'd never seen him for a consult. And my midwife had come back downstairs and we're in this room and he's like, how are we going? Like, how are you feeling? He was making me feel really confident and really comfortable. And I was like, I'm not ready to come in for an induction. I know my risks, but me and my baby aren't ready. And then my midwife was like, I gave her a stretch and sweep today. The cervix is favorable. I think she's going to go into spontaneous labor in a couple of days. And me and my midwife had a plan too that if that stretch and sweep didn't work on the Tuesday, I would come back in on the Thursday and have another one.
Hmm.
And me and my husband Jerome left that consultation. I was feeling like on cloud nine. I probably had like so much oxytocin throwing through me. I was like, I'm gonna have this baby on the weekend. It was a Tuesday, and I was like, I'm having this baby on the weekend. And he was like, yeah, 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 yeah. And we get in the car, and I'm like, let's go home and take a big walk with the dog and like cook dinner. So we get home, I think we go for like a big long walk. Where we live has like we live just off a reserve, so we go on these beautiful walks up around Urambi Reserve. We take the dog. It's not yet daylight savings time, so it's kind of like at dusky dawn. It's dusk time. It's beautiful. We come home, we cook dinner, and I stay on my feet all evening up until I need to go to bed at like about 9:30. And as I'm getting ready to go to bed, I'm like, oh, I've actually been feeling these um, twinges quite consistently, and they're not dying down. And I was like, they feel like period cramps. I was like, this could be early labor. I'm going to gaslight myself into thinking it's not, because it could stop. And I get into the bed and I have a pretty rough night's sleep. I need to I keep having these sensations,
Mm-hmm.
but I can sleep through them, but they're kind of waking me up. And I remember at one point I got up and I went to the bathroom, and when I wiped, I was like, oh, that feels like something is there. So I like flicked on the light, and it was my mucus plug. And I was like,
Right.
okay, this could be soon. I was like, it could be a week, it could be a couple of hours. Don't get too excited. And I like toddled back into bed, very pregnant, huge. And I think it was a bit of a warmer night at this point. And I'm like, I say to Jerome, my husband, I'm like, I think I'm going into labor. And he's like, oh, I'm so excited. And I was like, shh, it's rest time.
So much for getting some sleep. It's hard not to be excited.
It's rest time. And I'm very tossy turny. So I lean over to Jerome and I tap him on the shoulder. I'm not checking the time at this point. I don't know what time I lost my mucus plug and what time I kicked Jerome out of the bed, but I kicked Jerome out of the bed and I was like, go sleep in the spare bedroom. I just want to have a good night's rest and I want to use the whole bed. I just want to like be nice and comfortable. And he's like, okay. I was like, don't worry. I'll yell out to you if I need you. He's like, all right. I then continued to have like a bit of a restless night sleep with these sensations, but it's not painful at all. And I'm only just having to acknowledge it's there. I'm not having to breathe through them yet. They're just there. I think at about 6 o'clock, I properly woke up and was like, okay, something is happening. So I text my midwife and I'm like, morning, something definitely happening. I've lost my mucus plug. I'm feeling sensations, but it's nothing to write home about. And she replies and she's like, that's good. That's a good thing. Just try to ignore it, try and rest, have something to eat. And then I wake up and I'm like, I should probably go tell Jerome that I think going into labor. And I go into the bedroom where he's in. I'm like, I think I'm in very, very early labor. He's like, oh, that's so exciting. And I said, but you still go to the office. He works from the office 1 day a week and then he works from home the other time. And I was like, but still go to the office and I'll call you if I need you to come home, because I just want to pretend like this isn't happening so it continues to progress.
Which is very wise to try to
Yeah.
be as normal as you can for as long as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I better jump in the shower and wash my hair and just, freshen up, because we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm having a shower and I'm feeling it's starting to like be like, okay, this is more. Then Jerome jumps in the shower and I'm blow drying my hair. And as I'm blow drying my hair, I go, Jerome, I don't think you should go into the office today. And he's like, okay, I won't go into the office. I was like, I'd like you to stay and hang out with me. And he's like, that's good. Let's do that. We go downstairs and I have like a really big, beautiful breakfast. And Jerome goes and defrosts the soup that you've told us to
Yeah.
prepare. So he goes and defrosts the soup. And I think we just like sort out a last few minute things in case things are happening. Like he ties up a few loose ends at work.
Mm.
And then we go on a big walk that morning with the dog. And they're starting to just be there, but I'm not needing to use any type of pain relief. At around 11 o'clock, my midwife calls me, and she lives up in Belconnen and we're down in Tuggeranong. And so she's like, I've just finished up at the hospital. I'm going to come and check on you before I head back home. So she comes over and she does a cervical check and she's like, you're 3 centimeters. And while I'm there, I'm like, oh, I'm having a contraction now. And she's like, yeah, you're not in an established labor. She's like, for
Mm.
me, for you to be in established labor, I need to tell that you're having a contraction, but really I can just talk through them. She's like, just keep doing this and we'll keep in contact with you throughout the day. I think I take like a little nap throughout the day and we take another walk in the afternoon. And then it's starting to get dark. And I think when it's starting to get dark, I'm a bit like, oh, these are getting a bit more pinchy. They're getting a bit more prickly. I'd like to put the TENS machine on now, which I loved. So from the moment I had the TENS machine on, I kept it on until I went to hospital and got in the water, which was in a couple of days' time. So this is now Wednesday afternoon. And I'm pretty sure my midwife came and checked on me about like 6 or 7 o'clock that night just to double check. And I'm 4 centimeters. So I've only progressed 1 centimeter between 11 and 6 to 7 that evening.
Mm.
But I'm not surprised because I'm not in very established labor and I'm still able to do typical things. And she's like, tomorrow, if I think when my midwife was there, she was like, we might be going to hospital tonight or tomorrow. I think you might be having the baby. But she's like, I've eaten my words before. Birth is different. We'll just see how it goes. And she goes home. And then throughout the night, I continue to progress and it starts to pick up quite a bit. I'm trying to be moving around. I'm taking naps. I'm using a birth sling. So that was one of my tools in my toolboxes. I had a birth sling that hung off our door in our bedroom, and I'm doing all different types of movements. But I'm trying not to exhaust myself too much because I know that I'm not quite yet in active labor. I think my husband takes a rest. And then at one point, I'm like, I would really like to take a sleep myself. And my labor stopped at 3 a.m. It just completely stopped. And I slept for about 5 hours. And that's it completely
Ask
stopped.
and you shall
It
receive.
just stopped. And when I woke up at 7 a.m., so this is now Thursday, I've labored all Wednesday. I've woken up at 7 a.m. on the Thursday and it stopped. And I was so disheartened. I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I wanted to have given birth last night. Like, why is this taking so long? Okay, we've got to go and restart this labor. So we go back downstairs. It feels like the same day all over again. I have a big breakfast, but I vomit this breakfast up.
Ah.
And I'm like, oh, this is getting interesting. Um, and then I'm like, let's go on a big walk. So we go on this walk that we do normally takes us like 25 minutes with the dog, and it ends up taking us an hour and a half because I have to stop because I'm having contractions that are getting quite prickly. And at this point, I believe is when I start to use vocal toning, which I had learnt through my prenatal yoga with Offspring.
Yeah.
I felt really connected. So I used vocal toning right up until I delivered the baby. So I'm pretty sure like our neighbors could all tell that like Xanthia is finally having the baby. We can all hear it. Get home from that big walk and I take a sleep in the middle of the day and then continue just to labor at home using different tools like the birthing ball, the sling, taking rests. We have a flight of stairs in our house and I'm just doing lunges up that. And I had received a call from my midwife in the middle of the day, just checking on how I was going. And she's like, look, you've been in labor for a bit of time now. You're probably starting to feel a bit tired. Would you like to come in and we'll admit you, we'll break your waters, and we'll put you on the drip? And I was like, I'm not feeling quite ready for that. I'm feeling quite confident that me and my baby are just working on this slower. And that.
So I love that you had a little pause in your labor and you even had another little sleep during the day. There's Xanthia is giving some really good tips about managing labors, particularly long labors, because we've got to pace ourselves and we can put a lot of energy into early labor and then get very, very tired. So the fact that you did that, and I think it's fascinating that your body actually gave you a break as well
It
by
was great.
giving you that 4 to 5 hours sleep. That's quite incredible. So yeah. So how did it progress when, ultimately you went to the hospital and what unfolded from there?
Yeah, so it's quite a funny story of what led us to the hospital because I guess you kind of like, this was my first baby, and you're like, when do we go to the hospital? And I had not wanted to give birth in the hospital. Originally, I wanted a home birth, but I knew it was the safest for my baby
Of
to deliver
course,
in the
yeah.
hospital. So it was about 4 or 5 o'clock, and Jerome had been keeping in contact with my midwife. And she's calls Jerome. She said, I'm going to come out and check on Xanthia. I'm going to have something to eat, and then I'm going to come out and check on her. And then we're going to make a plan for either that night or the next day about what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
She gets in, and as she's like driving over, because like I know Jerome's like, okay, she's left her house. I'm like, okay, I've got like 20 minutes till she's here. I'm starting to think, what do I want to do if I'm only a couple more centimeters dilated? Um, like, will I accept like more interventions? And at this point, I'm probably like, do you know what? Maybe I do need to start to accept them depending on what happens.
Mm.
She comes up into our bedroom, everything's all like dim and calm, and she does the check, and she's like, okay, Xanthia, you're 7 centimeters. And I'm so calm and so not aware that I'm in like established labor that I say, so like a couple of more hours at home and then we can go in. And she goes, no.
No.
She goes,
It's
no.
time.
She says it like hilariously. She's like, you and I have advocated very hard for you to have this low interventions birth. She's like, we will be in a lot of trouble if you deliver on the side of the road. She's like, you're coming into the hospital now. She goes, don't rush, get yourselves all ready, and
Yeah.
I'll meet you at the hospital, but you've got to come in now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And looking back, it was the best time to come in because
Yeah.
I could get in the
Perfect.
car comfortably, walk up the stairs to the
Yeah.
birthing suite and set myself up. So we get into the car, and I remember Jerome did a corner like in the car, and I said, there's no rush. Like that hurt. There's no rush.
Poor Jerome.
Slow down. And he was like, okay, darling. And we're playing like our birthing playlist
Yeah,
music
yeah.
at this point. And Jerome parks down the bottom of the hospital, and I'm waiting for the elevator. So it's about 5 o'clock at the hospital at this time. So everyone's kind of like leaving for the day. And you can tell I'm in labor because I'm vocal toning at this point. And I'm waiting at the elevator, and I'm going, and there's this little, probably like 5-year-old girl and her dad. And the little girl's going, Daddy, what's that noise? What's that lady doing? And he's like, darling, shh, she's having a baby. And she's like, but why is she making that noise? And he's going, because it hurts to have a baby. And she goes, what does it
Oh.
feel like to have a baby? And he said, it's kind of like going to the toilet.
Oh.
And I can hear this. And it's bringing me so much oxytocin. So the transition from home to the
The
hospital
things
because
you
of that
remember.
made me really happy.
Yeah.
We sign in at the birth suites, and the thing that I had been really nervous about is the birthing suites in Canberra. You're not guaranteed water immersion therapy with the pool, and
Right.
I like say to my midwife, it depends how busy, what time of year it is, and I'm delivering in early October, which is a peak period time for babies. And I say to my midwife, I'm like, do we have a good room? She's like, we've got a great room. She's like, I've picked the best one. Walk into the room. She's set it, it's all dimly lit. She's got the water running.
Oh.
Jerome quickly sets up all these things in the room, like my birthing altar in the room. I have to have a few checks, and then I've gotten the wireless monitoring popped on. And I thought I would hate the wireless monitoring, but I actually hardly noticed it once it was in the right
Great. That's
spot.
fabulous.
And I was able to labor in the water with that. So pretty quickly, I'm like, okay, I'd like to get in that bath now. And I get in the bath, and I'm in the bath for 4 hours. For the first 2 hours, I can talk between contractions, and we're talking about Gilmore Girls, and we're talking, is the baby going to be a Thursday baby or a Friday baby? And I'm really happy, and it's like so much oxytocin. And I remember someone said, I can't believe we're in a hospital right now. I feel like we're in a spaceship on the moon. It just felt like the room was dark, and my midwife was like a beautiful gatekeeper. Like she was
Mm.
keeping the obstetricians, she was just updating them. She was updating the the neonatal team who were waiting, who knew I was in established labor and had presented to the hospital, and they're not coming in and disturbing my sacred space.
Beautiful.
I'm just able to
Wow.
work with the baby. At this point, it's becoming clear to me, but I don't vocalize it, that I'm like, this baby is not in the right position.
Ah,
She is posterior. And I'm like, okay. So I start to talk to the baby a lot more. I'm like, just move down, baby. Just turn. We can do this. After the two, it gets to a point where I'm stopping talking between my contractions, and they're getting to a bit more of that pointy end. And my midwife is like, all right, to hop out of the water, I'm going to give you a check. And I'm like, okay, happy to have a check. She checks me and she's like, okay, you're about 8 centimeters. And I'm like, I've just done all that big work
yeah, yeah.
to not be as dilated as I was, because I thought I was quite close to having the baby. And I'm like, I think my midwife is then like, my advice is I think I should break your waters now. And Jerome uses his brains. And he's like, so he asked the benefits, the risks, is it alternative?
Alternatives. Yeah.
What does our intuition
Mm.
say? What happens if we do nothing? And my midwife is like, it will progress the labor, it will make it more intense, but a risk is that the baby won't be able to move positions now. I consent to have my waters broken. So they're broken, they're clear, no meconium there is present. And after that, they get very spicy. And I'm like, oh, this is intense. And I'm starting to get a lot more uncomfortable. Jerome says like my vocal toning goes from quite like low and long to when I get to the peak of the contraction or the surge, I'm kind of going, ah, like, ow. And I think this about an hour, oh no, right after I had my water broken, I'm like, I would like some help now. And my midwife was like, well, why don't we try the gas? And she goes and sets it up. And I hate the sound of it. I had not been prepared that the gas was loud. And I found it really, really distracting to focus on my breathing. So I found that the gas, not
Mm.
only because you have to change your breathing style when you have the gas, but the noise of it
Mm,
just threw me
interesting.
off. And I think I took like one puff and I was like, this is not for me. Pack it away, turn it off. I hate it. So then we're trying different positions to get the baby to come. And I'm sitting like on the toilet, like the dilation station, and I start to have some very, very gnarly contractions. And I'm thinking in my head, I keep looking at the clock and I'm like, I'm not going to have this baby. It's about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at this point. I'm like, I'm not going to have this baby until the next day. And I can't continue to have a contraction every 3 minutes for the next 6 hours, 8 hours. I'm really tired and I'd like to take a rest. And I say to my midwife, I just want to take a rest. I just want to go home and I'll come back tomorrow. She was like, you get a rest between your contractions. And I was like, that's not enough. I need a rest. And I say, rip up the birth plan. I want the drugs. Like this, I
Yeah.
need some help. I need a tool from my toolbox. I want the epidural.
Mm.
And Jerome's like, says to the midwife, is it too late for the epidural? And she goes, it's actually not too late, because I think at this point we knew I was about 8, 9 centimeters. And she goes, it's actually not too late because Xanthia is now not starting to relax. It will probably help her relax, take a sleep, and then she'll have energy to push
Mm.
out the baby.
Mm.
And I remember saying, I go, okay, give me a couple minutes to think about it. And I say, cover up the clock. Like the clock is big in the room and I can't stop
Yeah.
staring at it. And I'm like, someone cover up the clock. So the clock gets covered up. And I'm like, okay, do I want this? Is this what I want? And then I have the urge to push. So it's
Oh,
classic transition of like, I'm giving up, rip up the birth plan. And I go, actually, I need to push. I want to push. I need to push now. And my midwife is like, all right, hop on the bed. And I'm on my side on the bed. And she checks me and she goes, you're 9 centimeters. You have a cervical lip. And I'm like,
mhm.
okay, so I can't push. And she goes, no, what we're going to do is every time you have and my contractions fully change from the
Mm.
dilating contractions to the pushing
Yeah.
contractions. And it's just that urge to like expel the baby. She's like,
Mm.
every time you have one, you're going to push and I will push your cervix out of the way and I'll fix the lip. Um, and so she does about 3 of those. And I think on the second contraction, when she's pushing and moving my cervical lip out of the way, I'm like, that really fucking hurts. And I say, please stop, please stop. And she goes, but it's working. And I go, all right, let's do it one more time. We do it one more time. And the cervical lip is moved out of the way and I'm 10 centimeters. And then I just push with intention, but also with like a bit of like coaching for motivation. And
Mm.
I have that classic thing of like, I can't fucking do this. I can't do this. And everyone's like, you're doing it though. You're actually pushing out the baby. And I'm like, no, no. Oh, this is so hard. And I didn't think I would want to give birth on the bed, but it was actually where I was drawn to in the end. I actually quite like
Interesting.
pushing on the bed. I was on my sides. I would keep moving from sides and then I'd get like up on my knees and I'd push. Sometimes I'd push on my back. It was not known to me. So Jerome was a beautiful gatekeeper at this point because he's at the monitor. That I think about half an hour into pushing, the baby's heartbeat is starting to become elevated and he's silencing the alarm. So I'm not hearing it. And I just think I'm pushing and like it's really hard and I'm pushing her out because it's hard to push her out. But then an obstetrician comes into the room and she goes, your baby's heart rate is just in a little bit of not a good zone. She goes, I'm going to help you to push now. And she does some coached pushing with me. And she's like, it's not a concern just yet. We've got to push a bit. We've got to start to move things along. I think with her help, I'm able to like control my pushing a bit more and I get the baby quite low in the birth canal.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where she's like, okay, you've been pushing for this much amount of time because your baby already has a lower reserve because she's medically complex. My recommendation right now is I need to assist you. And I'm like, okay. And she says, it's either going to be forceps or the Kiwi cup. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. Oh my goodness, I can't do this. So I'm like, okay, if that's what you think. And I'm still having consistent contractions and I'm pushing between them telling me this. And I'm starting to notice that the room is no longer dark. The lights have been turned on and the neonatal team have set up their area to resus the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I say to the obstetrician, then she goes, actually, I'm just going to do an episiotomy. And before she does it, I go, can I please have another try? And she's like, of course, have another try. And that made me feel really confident and really listened to by
Wow.
this obstetrician who I'd never met, who was just on shift that night at the birthing suite. She was like, of course, try again. And she actually she said, I'll have one more try. And I actually had 2 or 3 more tries before they gave me the cut. And as soon as I had the cut, I was able to deliver the baby very easily following that. That really helped. And I remember I said to my midwife, I was like, do you think I should get it? Because it was the obstetrician who I didn't know saying this. And she goes, yes. She goes, I would do it now. And I'm like, okay, let's use that tool and let's have the episiotomy. And it didn't disturb me, but I think it disturbed my husband a lot. He said it sounded like someone was cutting a mattress with scissors. So I think that was a bit more shocking to him than it was to me. And then,
Yeah, we often don't feel that at that time because there's such big sensations going on.
yeah,
So tell us about when she was born.
oh, it was so magical. So you hear so much about the golden hour, and I knew that I would never have the golden
Yeah.
hour with Sadie. I knew I would have 1 minute. And when I say I had 1 minute, I literally had 1 minute, but it
Mm.
felt like our golden minute and our golden time. So I delivered her. She was placed straight onto my chest. And um, I remember saying to her, and I remember feeling like, I know you. I know you. Like, I don't even like, I've never met you, but I know you. And I say to her, I've waited so long for you. I've waited for you for so long. We're so ready for you. And I lifted her up and I was looking at her, and everyone was like, Xanthia, careful. And I'm like looking at her and I'm like, I love you, baby. I love you so much. You're not going to see me. I must have said it to her. I was like, you're not going to see me, but I'll come and see you super soon. And the doctors are going to take you now. And your dad's going to go with you. And we're rubbing her down. And I hear them say 1 minute, and they've clamped their cord and they've handed Jerome the scissors and they cut her cord. And then she's removed from my chest and she's taken to the intubation table.
Wow.
And because I've just given birth and I've had the episiotomy, I'm not really focusing on what's going on over there. I'm focusing
Mm.
on delivering my placenta. So I have the injection in my leg. And then I say to my midwife, oh, I've felt the placenta detach now. And she goes, okay, let's push it out together. And I remember kind of calling out, like, is the baby okay? And they're going, yeah, the baby's doing really well. And I hear them say intubated. So I know at this point in time now she's been intubated, but it was calm. Like the room's not loud.
Wow.
It's still really
Wow.
beautiful. Like it's bright and it's not your typical birthing experience of what I had envisioned, but it was still a really beautiful physiological birth in the end, just with like the interventions that were right for me and the baby at the time.
Mm.
And then
Wow, that's an amazing story. So now the journey to getting her well and going through surgery and things like that was a huge thing for you to go through, Xanthia. Just share that with anybody who might be interested from the perspective of having a baby with the same condition. What would you tell them?
yes, so the process is that babies with CDH is a very clear procedure that they follow. So they need to focus on stabilizing the baby's pulmonary hypertension because of the compromised lung. So the way they do that is they intubate the baby and they also put in like a nasal gastric tube to keep air from inflating the bowels.
Mhm.
And then they need to make the baby comfortable and they stabilize the baby and they basically sedate the baby.
Mm.
One thing that we found super cool that I'll just touch on quickly is my midwife was told to cut the umbilical cord longer, and they use the umbilical cord and they make an umbi-line, and that's how they deliver all the nutrients and medication to the baby as well as a central
Wow.
line.
Isn't that good?
It was really cool.
Yeah.
So she was taken to the NICU about 10 minutes, I'm going to say 10 to 15 minutes after delivery, and they've stabilized her and they take her. And then it's a process of just getting them stable enough for a period of time before they do the surgery. So Sadie was operate when I delivered her, the general surgeon came in. So I delivered her at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, and then at rounds the next day, so 8 o'clock that Friday. The surgeon comes in and they're like, we're going to do the surgery in 1 week's time. And we're like, okay. And then throughout the weekend, they were like, your baby is so stable. We're going to operate on the Monday. And so she had surgery on day 3 of life. And the surgery itself, I think for a lot of people, you expect that to be the hardest part and you think, okay, once you've had a surgery you're going to come home, but it's actually just the very start of the CDH journey.
Right.
So the surgery itself only takes about an hour and a half, but the process of taking the baby from the NICU to the surgery and then coming back is like almost a whole day, and we were able to walk with her to surgery and like kiss her goodbye, and then she went in and it was really lovely. We loved our surgeon. She took like videos and photos of during the surgery that we'll one day be able to
Wow.
show Sadie. And so the process is they create a very large incision on the side of the abdomen where the defect is. They remove all the content so all the organs that have herniated. They stitch the diaphragm and then they put everything back into the abdominal cavity.
Mhm.
And you could tell from when Sadie was in the NICU before the surgery that her body did look slightly not like a typical baby. Like her chest was
Mm.
quite big and her stomach was quite flat. But as soon as she came back from surgery,
Was
you could
reversed.
it was reversed.
Mm.
Another challenge that I wasn't prepared for is I never held Sadie properly in my arms from that 1 minute until I think she was 1 week old or 8 days
Right.
old.
Wow.
So that was a really hard thing. And that's really hard to get your milk in that way because
Yeah, I
I'm
was going
not
to
having
say.
your skin to skin.
Mm,
I can touch the baby, but it's actually quite sad when I think looking back at it. The touching also, it when you're touching the baby, you like, when you want to touch a baby and you're just like touching them like softly, that actually agitates these babies on the type of medication that they're on. So when you touch them, you need to hold them very firmly, like, and you need to like kind of
right.
like push down on her. So it was very minimal touching and no holding until she had been extubated and gone on a new breathing support called CPAP. And then we were able to hold her as much as we want.
And so, how's her recovery progressed from there? Because she's 10 weeks old
She's
now.
10
Have
weeks
you been
old.
able to establish the feeding and how has that unfolded?
Yeah. So that's a whole
That's probably a
process.
whole
So you've got
podcast
to focus,
itself.
it's a whole podcast. Basically, to summarize it, there's two ways that we focus in the NICU. There's breathing and then there's feeding. So
Yeah.
breathing, you need to step down from intubation to CPAP to high flow. So
Hmm.
that took a period of 3 weeks that she was slowly stepped down. So extubated 1 week, CPAP for 2 days, and then she was on high flow for the next 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And then the next thing is feeding. So the babies with CDH don't take any breast milk until they're quite stable after surgery, and they're on um, this medication. I think it's a medication. It's called TPN, total parenteral nutrition, and it's a way of providing all the essential like foods and nutrients that your body needs through the bloodstream.
Right.
And then once they're recovered after the surgery, I think it's about like 5 to 7 days, depending on the baby, then they start to tube feed them. So then it's weaning off TPN to tube feeds and then from tube feeds to breastfeeds.
Right.
So you work very closely with like lactation consultants, and all of the nurses and the doctors are very well rehearsed in this because this is kind of
Mm.
what they do for preemie babies.
Yeah.
Um, but right now, Sadie is exclusively breastfed, and we worked really, really hard for that.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So she's exclusively breastfed and has been exclusive. Her NG tube was removed when she was exactly 3 weeks or 4 weeks, exactly four
Goodness
weeks.
me. And did she have the strength and things to
She
get
had
that
like the
suck?
innate drive to suck.
Wow.
Yeah. As soon as they're extubated and they're on CPAP, which is just through the nose, they give them a dummy.
Yeah.
And then once they're on high flow, you can start to introduce suck feeding. And it was a long process. So
Mm.
I had to pump every 3 hours from the delivery.
Yeah.
And when they can start to breastfeed, you're like, great, we can just start breastfeeding. But you actually do like one breastfeed a day, two breastfeed. Maybe you do one breastfeed for like 4 days, and then you do three breastfeeds, slowly building it up. And
Goodness me.
towards the end, I was going into the NICU at bizarre times of the day because you want to space them out, particularly
Yeah.
CDH because they get so tired. So I'd like wake up, I'd go and feed her at 7 o'clock, stay 7 o'clock in the morning, and then would stay till quite like in the afternoon time, give her another one, come home, do some stuff, come back in the evening, give her another one, might stay
My
there,
goodness.
might come home, and then come back in at like 2 a.m. to feed her or something like that, just to show that she was strong enough and ready to come home. And the
Wow.
whole NICU journey is its own story. That was
Mm.
a long time. But we were very fortunate in the CDH community that Sadie had a very short stay compared to most babies. So most babies are 6 weeks, and
Yeah.
she in the NICU and she was 3 weeks.
Yeah. Wow. Gosh, this story is fascinating. And, these little ones can take us for a real ride when it comes to, bringing them into the world. And your story has been incredibly inspiring, Xanthia, from, dealing with a very long labor. You gave so many good little tips and tricks about managing a long labor and pacing yourself, having breaks where you could, to realizing she was posterior, to getting her out with a little bit of help and the support of incredible caregivers, and then going on that journey to the point where you've been able to exclusively breastfeed at 10 weeks is quite phenomenal. I hope this story has been inspiring for those of you who are listening. We're so much stronger than what we realize. And people like Xanthia are an incredible inspiration for us to dig deeper, knowing that if this woman can do it, I can do it too. and to trust in your ability to have what it is you need to get through these struggles. And of course, when it comes to being a parent, that's exactly what is demanded of us. And we are so much more than what we think. So I want to give a big thank you to Xanthia for sharing such an amazing story. And yeah, we'll bring you some more goodness next time. Thanks again, Xanthia, for coming.
Thank you, Tracy.